So the fourth way that we're going to be able to find the trig function values is if we have an angle that's bigger than 90. And we're going to use our special right triangles again. So you all will have a quiz next Thursday on all the lessons up to and including this one. So next Thursday, I'm about to push it back, so we can review next Tuesday.
It's quiz, not test.
It's quiz. Close notes. Go on YouTube and watch the video.
I'm gonna give you 30.
Alright. So before we can find sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, and the rest, we have to first talk about reference angles. So I'm going to make 2 more of these. So if we have an angle in standard position and it's not acute, so it's not less than 90, it's not in the first quadrant, we can find an acute angle that relates to this angle and use it to find our trig functions. So in the second quadrant, the reference angle, the angle I'm speaking about, is the angle from the terminal side to the x-axis. So this angle is the reference angle for the one in red. In order to find that angle, in order to find its measure, I just do 180 minus my original angle. So if I have an angle in quadrant 3, the reference angle is, again, from my terminal side to the closest side of the x-axis. It should be an acute angle, so it should be less than 90. It's not going to go all the way back to this side. To find out this angle measure, I take the angle that I was given and I subtract 180 from it. And then last but not least, if I'm in the fourth quadrant, I'm talking about this angle as my reference angle. And to find it, I do 360 minus the original angle. So you could potentially remember those 3 expressions, or you could just know that the reference angle is always from the terminal side to the closest part of the x-axis. And it should be acute. It should be smaller than 90. Okay.
Can you go back just for a second?
Sure. Good? So that's like where, if you're at home watching, you can just rewind. Or if you're at home watching and you're ready to move on, but we're not moving on, you can fast forward.
Are you recording right now?
Yep.
This is all on the phone or the internet?
On the interweb. Yeah. So here's our angle 218 degrees, not acute. Its reference angle is from the terminal side to the x-axis, the one in purple. So all I need to do in this third quadrant is take my original angle and subtract 180. And get that my reference angle is 300, not 300, 38 degrees. That mistake's on the internet.
It'll scar you for life.
Okay, so what this means is if I take the sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent of 218 degrees, and then I do the same thing for 38 degrees, you're going to get all the same numbers. The only difference is for 218 degrees, I'm going to have a couple of them that are negative because I'm in a different quadrant. Okay? So the number will be the same. The sign might be different, plus or minus. And we know how to handle that when we get to 30, 60, and 45. We'll do that. So we can do the same thing when we have an angle that's bigger than 360 as well. You have to go back into the file. Back to lesson 1, I think. So we need to figure out which angle ends in the same place as 1,387. So we need to find a coterminal angle first. We can find that just by subtracting 360 until we get to a positive number smaller than 360. I think if you do it 3 times, you get 307. So 1,387 and 307 start and end in the same place. Now we can find the reference angle for both of those. It's right there. And I just do 360 minus 307. Any questions thus far? If you're watching this at home, you'll never believe how excited the students are. All right, try those 2. You're in, it's recorded.
Education. If you can't read the writing, sorry.
Okay, so we missed one step. This 130 is coterminal with 850. 130 is in the second quadrant, so we'll subtract it from 180. So we just have one more step to go. Cool. Got both of those. Okay, so that's that plus like a little bit more is the new step, and then we're going to still use the sine, cosine, tangent, and those ratios to find values. So I'm finding the exact value for all the trig functions given an angle now. So I'm told my angle is negative 240. Negative 240 starts and ends in the same place as positive 120. The coterminal, I can just add 360 and get that my coterminal angle is 120. So my reference angle is right here. And it's 180 minus 120, which is 60 degrees. So my reference angle comes from one of our special right triangles. So if I want to find the 6 trig functions of negative 240, all I need to do is use my special right triangle in the second quadrant. So this angle here, my reference angle, we said was 60 degrees. The side across from 60 is the square root of 3. Whoops. The hypotenuse is 2. And then the other side is 1. In this example, though, which one of those should be negative? One should be negative because we're in the second quadrant, so x is negative. Yeah.
Sorry, can you explain one more time why one's the negative?
Yep. So 1 is negative because we're in the coordinate plane here, and to the left in the x direction it's negative.
Okay, so 2 wouldn't be negative.
The r value, this hypotenuse, is always positive.
Okay.
And then in the second quadrant, y's are positive.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we have x, y, and r. And now we're back to questions and problems we've already dealt with. We take our x, y, and r, and we plug those values into the ratios. So I want you to take a minute and do that. Okay, so you used a reference angle of 60 to get your answers. And you also use that we're in quadrant 2 to determine what's positive and what's negative. But when you give me your final answer, you should be telling me that you just found the sine of negative 240, the cosine of negative 240, the tangent of negative 240. So refer back to the angle that we started with, because that's what we were originally trying to find.
You know, in CSC, could you write root 6 over 3 at the end of it?
The 2 and the root 3 can't be multiplied because one of them's underneath the radical and one of them's not.
Okay.
Okay, so once we get to this point, it's similar, it's the same thing we've been doing. So really, for all these different types of problems, the start is the difference. Questions about this one? Anybody recognize these answers from earlier today? Yeah. So the trig function values of negative 240 have the same numbers as 60. The only thing that changed is a few of them were negative. All right. Try that one on your own. Okay, so the first thing you have to do was find the angle coterminal with 675. So we can subtract 360 in purple and get an angle of 315 degrees. So 675 and 315 start and end in the same spot. So 315's in the fourth quadrant. If I subtract 360 minus 315, I get a reference angle of 45. And I just use my 45, 45, 90 to set the right triangle. Y is negative in quadrant 4, X is positive, and R is always positive. And I can just use those values to plug in to my ratios. Anybody have questions about what I did? So, did you get to 315? So once I get to 315, I know 315's in quadrant 4. If I go around here, 90 degrees, 180, 270, 350. And then in quadrant 4, I subtract the angle that I started with from 360, and that gives me an angle of 45. So 45 degrees is my reference angle. Any other questions? All right. So there's the practice. I don't know if all the answers are in the back of the book, but I think a bunch of them are. So you should check yourself. So do a couple, then check your answers. I also posted the solutions online. You have to log in to get into the Fusion page now, because I had to make it private, because I posted the solutions and they're not my property, so I can't share it before.